can you remember your very first NSA event? Do you remember the feelings that went through you? It was exactly 10 years ago, Washington, D.C., Naomi's privilege of the platform. I still had a day job, and I was very new in the comedy world. I was scared. I remember seeing the legends. I remember hearing the stories of those of you who are so successful in speaking, making millions per speech. And then I sat there just like you, and I thought, hey, wait a minute, that could be me sometime. And then another thought, from the depths of your brain, started forcing its way forward through the enthusiasm until finally that thought shouted, yeah, Darren, great idea, but what if you... fall on your face? What do you do when you fall on your face? Do you jump right up and hope no one noticed? Are you more concerned with what other people will think than what you can learn from this? Is this where the horse did it? Madam Conference Chair, fellow fallers, and the people way in the back. Ouch! Did you feel I stayed down there too long? Have you ever stayed down too long? After 4 years of business school, I went for the American dream. I bought a Subway sandwich shop. Oh yeah. You're all impressed, I can tell. I don't want to brag or anything, but I took a $60,000 debt in just 6 short months. I doubled that debt. That's right, I turned the Subway sandwich shop into a non-profit organization. But I financially fell on my face. And then I remembered from my childhood hero, Dr. Robert Goddard, had a ridiculous idea about building a device to take off from the ground and to reach the stars. Dr. Goddard was the reason we landed on the moon. I remember when I had my ridiculous idea. I was driving down the road listening to a tape of Brian Tracy. And he asked a question. He said, what would you dare to dream if you knew you wouldn't fail? I struggled for an answer, and then, bing! I'd be a comedian. But you have to understand my background. I wasn't funny. I wasn't a class clown. In fact, the first time my brother ever laughed at me is when I told him I wanted to be a comedian. Ouch. So many of us, we know where we are today in our careers, in our life, and we know clearly where we want to go. That's where I want to be. And yet you and I, what do? We go back and forth. When I just have a little more time, when I just have a little more money, when the kids are a little older, that's what I'll do. But we never take that first step. Dr. Goddard's first rocket took off in Auburn and landed in Auburn. It only reached 41 feet, but it was a first step. See, there are strangers out there, people who don't even know you, who will make fun of your first step. The next morning in Auburn, after his rocket failed, the headline read, "Moon rocket misses target by 238,799.5 miles." Ouch. But those strangers, those people who don't even know you, they're just obstacles in your way. We also have friends and family that love us, who don't want to see us fall on our face. Can you imagine my parents' reaction? What if they're stretching their budget to help me through college and seeing me fall on my face, and then I come home? Mom, Dad, I want to be a comedian. I was met by silence. But they too are just part of your process. I remember after struggling in the comedy world for about a year, I was bombing one night. It was horrible. So I went for my surefire bit. I brought a woman up from the audience, and she stood directly behind me. And we would tell a story. It's an old improv technique. I would tell a story with verbally, and she would tell a story with hand gestures. And it usually works best the more animated the hands are. Well, this woman stood there like an ancient statue. She didn't move. I turned to her in desperation. I said, please do something with your hands. She did. Oh, the pain, ouch. I immediately called my mentor, Rick Siegel. I said, Rick, I bombed, I died, they hated me. And Rick said, so? What do you mean, so? How do you argue it's so? And then Rick reminded me, every comedian, every speaker, anyone who's accomplished anything has first fallen on their face. And then I remembered Subway. I fell on my face, but I never took the next step. You see, it's a step after the ouch. We forget about that. We all were afraid to take that step. We don't want to. We're scared to death. But when that foot lands, and you learn that lesson, you'll love that feeling. Dr. Goddard's assistant said every rocket that went up and what other people would consider failure, he would consider it valuable negative information. Information each step getting closer to the moon. Dr. Goddard was an ouch master. We need to be ouch masters. If you're willing to fail, you can learn anything. I'm not the greatest comedian. I'm not making millions. Not even close. But I get to do what I love to do for a living. But it's because I took the step after the ouch. See, I wasn't given the gift of making people laugh. I was given the opportunity to take that next step. So were you. What's your next step? Take it. I didn't want to look back in my life and say, you know, I never did try that comedy thing, but instead, I died debt-free. Woo! All of us, as we're headed to that goal, we're going to reach a point where we get stuck and our feet are like in cement. We can't move, but we're so afraid of that ouch, we forget that if we lean forward and take a risk and fall on our face, when we get up, notice you still made progress. So please, with me, go ahead and fall, but fall forward.